Have you ever wondered why some people seem to break free from the ordinary, while others remain stuck in the same cycle of work, bills, and worry? Picture this: a young man walking through the city late at night, passing shining towers of glass and steel. Behind those windows, fortunes are made every day while he struggles to pay rent. He stops, stares, and asks himself a simple question: what do they know that I don't? That question is where every journey to wealth begins, not with money in hand, but with curiosity in the mind. The truth is, wealth is rarely about luck or sudden miracles. Most people who build lasting riches do it step by step, following principles that may not be obvious at first, but are powerful once understood. These principles are not about schemes or shortcuts. They are about how you think, how you act, and how you build habits that carry you forward. If you lean in closely, you'll see that every rich person, no matter how different their path looks, has walked through the same invisible doors. And today, those doors are opening for you too. The first secret is one that almost nobody talks about openly, yet it is the foundation for everything else: your mindset. A person with the wrong mindset could inherit $1 million and lose it within a year, while someone with the right mindset could start with nothing and build more than they ever dreamed. The wealthy think differently about money, opportunities, and even about themselves. They see money not as something to be feared, but as a tool, like a hammer or a pen, waiting to be used. If you believe deep down that money is evil or that you don't deserve it, you will push it away without realizing it. But if you treat money as a partner, as energy that flows toward responsibility and vision, then it begins to move toward you. It may sound like magic, but it is simply psychology. People who expect growth find ways to grow. People who expect loss find ways to lose. Once your mind begins to shift, the second secret quietly reveals itself. Wealth is not only about how much you make, it is about how much you keep. Every coin, every note, every number in your bank account has value. It may not look like much at first, but wealth grows like a snowball rolling down a hill. The people who get rich are those who learn to respect money in small amounts before they ever handle it in large ones. They save, not because they are afraid to spend, but because they understand that money saved is money that can be put to work later. Think of a farmer. If he eats all his seeds today, he will starve tomorrow. But if he plants them, waters them, and waits, he will have fields of grain. In the same way, every dollar you save is a seed for your future. Still, saving alone is not enough, because a pile of coins in a box never grows by itself. This is why the third secret is perhaps the most valuable of all: investing in yourself before anything else. Many people think of investment only as stocks, real estate, or business ventures. But the richest people know that their very first and most important investment is their own mind, their own skills, their own ability to create. When you buy a book, take a course, learn a new language, practice a useful skill, or even improve your health, you are increasing the value of the one asset you can never lose: yourself. You carry that knowledge and strength everywhere you go, and it will pay you back in ways you cannot always predict. Think about it. A person with limited skills will always be limited in income. But a person who keeps learning, who adds new abilities, who sharpens their thinking, becomes unstoppable. The job market, the economy, even the country they live in. These things may change, but their value will always rise because they are not dependent on outside forces. They are creators, not just consumers. That is why self-investment is not selfish. It is the most generous thing you can do. The stronger you become, the more you can give, the more you can build, and the more wealth naturally flows toward you. As the young man walked past the glowing towers that night, he did not yet know these secrets. He thought riches belonged only to those born with privilege. But over time, he discovered that privilege is not only about family or background. It is about perspective. He began to shift his thoughts, to treat every small amount of money as important, and to invest in his own growth. Slowly, his world started to change. What once seemed like unreachable windows in the sky became doors he could open, one by one. And this is where the story begins. With a mindset ready for change, with respect for every coin, and with a deep commitment to self-investment, the foundation is laid. But these are only the first steps. Ahead lie more secrets, more discoveries, and more lessons that reveal how ordinary people transform into extraordinary successes. The path is not easy, but it is simple. Step by step, secret by secret, the journey continues. When the young man began to shift his mindset, to save with respect, and to invest in himself, he noticed the world didn't change overnight, but something inside him did. It was like opening a door to a room he had never known existed. Suddenly, he was aware of opportunities he had once ignored. He started seeing wealth not as something far away, but as something that could be built patiently with each choice. Yet even as he took those first steps, he realized that there were deeper truths waiting, truths that separated those who lived comfortably from those who achieved extraordinary riches. The fourth secret appeared to him in an unexpected way. He had taken a part-time job to add to his income while still studying and improving himself. At first, he thought he was making progress because he was working longer hours, earning a little more. But one evening, exhausted and drained, he sat at his desk and realized the hours of his life were slipping away. The money he earned was gone almost as soon as he received it, but the time, once spent, could never return. That was when he understood. The wealthy do not only measure value in money, they measure it in time. Time is the only resource you cannot buy more of. Once a minute is gone, it's gone forever. Poor people often trade endless hours for little pay, believing that more hours worked means more success. But the rich think differently. They ask, how can I make my time create money even when I'm not working? They look for ways to multiply their time, to invest it wisely instead of spending it carelessly. This was the young man's revelation. To become wealthy, he had to stop exchanging life for coins and start building ways for his time to serve him long after the work was done. He experimented with this idea. Instead of only working extra shifts, he began learning skills that would allow him to earn more in less time. He learned that if he built systems, wrote something once, or created something valuable, it could keep rewarding him again and again. For the first time, he felt the power of the fourth secret, valuing time above money. It wasn't about working harder. It was about working smarter, building leverage, and protecting the one resource that no one could ever replace. As he understood this, the fifth secret slowly revealed itself. He noticed that all around him, people were depending on one paycheck, one employer, or one fragile source of money. A single accident, a single company decision, or a single downturn could destroy years of effort. He realized that relying on only one source of income was like walking across a tightrope without a safety net. And yet, so many people live that way. The wealthy, however, built multiple streams of income. This did not mean he had to start with grand businesses or giant investments. It meant he needed to think in terms of rivers instead of puddles. A puddle dries up under the sun, but rivers flow from many places. He started small, freelancing in the evenings, selling a product online, investing in a course that would allow him to teach others. At first, these streams were thin and quiet. But over time, they grew. One day, when his main job cut his hours, he realized he did not feel panic. The other streams were still flowing, carrying him forward. That was when he truly understood. Wealth is not built on one pillar, but on many. And each new source of income is another step toward freedom. Building multiple streams of income did not just increase his money, it also increased his confidence. He was no longer trapped in fear of losing everything with one decision that wasn't his own. He felt stronger, safer, and freer to take bold steps. And in this freedom, he discovered the sixth secret, one that was less about money itself and more about the people around him. He began to notice a pattern. His life reflected the energy of those closest to him. When he spent time with friends who wasted their days complaining, he found himself complaining too. When he listened to people who mocked success, he felt guilty for wanting more. But when he met people who were ambitious, creative, and disciplined, his own energy lifted. It was like standing near a fire. Their warmth made him warmer. The sixth secret is about choosing your circle wisely. Wealthy people guard their environment carefully because they know the wrong company can pull them down faster than gravity. It is not about being cold or abandoning everyone who struggles, but it is about protecting your mind. If you spend your days with people who think small, you will unconsciously shrink your own dreams. If you surround yourself with those who reach higher, you will naturally rise with them. At first, this was painful for the young man. He had friends who laughed at his new habits, who called him strange for saving or foolish for learning. But he noticed how heavy he felt after being around them. Slowly, gently, he began spending less time with those who held him back and more with those who challenged him to grow. He attended events, joined groups, and found mentors who pushed him to think bigger. And slowly, his world shifted again. He saw how each of these secrets connected like links in a chain. The right mindset had opened the door. Saving and respecting money had given him stability. Investing in himself had increased his value. Valuing time over money had taught him to work smarter. Building multiple streams of income had given him freedom. And surrounding himself with the right people gave him the environment to keep climbing. Each secret was not just knowledge, it was transformation. One evening, walking again through the city, he looked up at the same towers of light. This time, though, he did not feel like an outsider. He understood that behind those windows were not only rich families born into fortune, but also people who had learned these very secrets. People who had started small, respected their time, built many streams, and chosen their companions wisely. He felt a spark of hope, not blind hope, but the strong kind that comes from action and understanding. The journey was far from over. There were more truths ahead, more lessons that would push him to grow stronger, braver, and wiser. He was still only beginning. But for the first time, he felt not like someone peering through glass at a world beyond his reach, but like a traveler on a path, walking steadily toward that world. And with every step, every choice, he drew closer to the life he once thought belonged only to others. The secrets were unfolding, and the adventure of wealth was only just beginning. The young man had already uncovered powerful lessons, but the path to wealth was far from finished. Each secret had strengthened him, sharpened his vision, and given him a clearer sense of what was possible. Yet as he moved further, he discovered that riches are not only about what you know, but also about what you do every single day. Knowledge without discipline, he realized, is like a key never turned in a lock. This realization led him to the seventh secret: discipline and consistency. In the beginning, enthusiasm had carried him. He was excited to learn, eager to save, and motivated to chase new opportunities. But after a while, the excitement began to fade. There were days when saving felt boring, when investing in his education felt slow, and when building new streams of income felt like too much work. It would have been easy to stop, to tell himself he had done enough. But something inside him whispered that wealth was not about sudden bursts of energy. It was about steady, repeated effort. He thought of a drop of water falling on stone. One drop seems like nothing, but 1,000 drops carve rivers. In the same way, wealth is carved by daily actions, small but consistent. The rich are not those who work hard for a few weeks and then give up, but those who stay steady even when no one is watching, even when progress seems invisible. Discipline is the bridge between goals and results. So he built routines. He gave himself rules. Save a percentage no matter what. Spend an hour every day learning. Invest a small part of his earnings instead of waiting for someday. He did not wait for motivation. He created habits. Slowly, these habits became automatic, like breathing. And soon, he realized he was not forcing himself anymore. The path was carrying him forward. That was the power of consistency. Once momentum begins, it keeps rolling like a wheel down a hill. But discipline alone could not take him everywhere. The eighth secret demanded courage, the kind of courage that separates dreamers from doers, taking calculated risks. He noticed that many people around him avoided risk at all costs. They stayed in safe jobs, safe routines, safe choices. Yet their lives never changed. They spoke of dreams, but their fear of failure held them prisoner. At the same time, he also saw others who chased risks recklessly, gambling their savings on wild schemes and losing everything. Both extremes, too much fear or too much recklessness, kept people poor. The wealthy, however, walked a different path. They studied, prepared, and then took bold steps when the moment was right. They did not gamble blindly, but neither did they freeze in fear. They understood that every opportunity carries risk, but that growth only comes when you dare to move beyond comfort. The young man faced his own moment of choice. He had saved some money, and he could have kept it safe in the bank, untouched and silent. But he also saw an opportunity to invest in a small online project. It was not guaranteed, but it was reasonable, with careful planning and effort. His heart raced as he decided. He knew he could lose. Yet he also knew that wealth never comes to those who wait forever. So he took the step, carefully, with preparation. The project did not make him rich overnight. At first, it struggled, and he worried he had been foolish. But with persistence, it began to grow. Slowly, it brought him not only extra income, but also experience, knowledge, and confidence. He learned that risk, when calculated and guided by discipline, was not an enemy, but a doorway. And though he stumbled, he also rose stronger each time. That was when he encountered the ninth secret, one of the most surprising of all, turning failures into stepping stones. Before this, failure had always felt final, like a wall at the end of the road. When something went wrong, he would feel shame, doubt, and frustration. But now he saw that failure was not a wall, it was a signpost. Each mistake pointed toward a lesson. Each setback revealed a weakness that could be strengthened. Wealthy people do not avoid failure. They collect it, study it, and use it as fuel. The young man's first online project eventually collapsed. He had made mistakes in planning, underestimated costs, and trusted the wrong people. At first, it felt devastating. Weeks of effort, savings, and energy were gone. But instead of quitting, he examined every error carefully. He wrote down what he had learned, adjusted his approach, and started again. The second attempt did better, and the third even better still. Without the first failure, he would never have gained the wisdom that carried him to success. He began to see failure differently. Where others saw defeat, he saw training. Where others saw loss, he saw investment and experience. He realized that every wealthy person he admired had once been a beginner who stumbled, fell, and rose again. Failure was not the opposite of success. It was part of the path to it. Walking home one night after a long day, he reflected on how much he had changed. He was no longer afraid of slow progress, because discipline carried him forward. He was no longer frozen by fear, because he had learned to take risks with wisdom. And he was no longer destroyed by setbacks, because he had discovered the hidden strength inside failure. The city lights above him no longer seemed unreachable. They felt like mirrors of his own growth, shining brighter with each step. He knew there were still more secrets ahead, secrets that would take him deeper into the world of wealth, showing him how to build not only income but lasting assets, how to master patience, and how to create value that would return to him in ways he could not yet imagine. The journey was far from over, but he was no longer just a dreamer. He was becoming a builder, a creator, someone who understood that wealth was not luck but the result of choices, habits, and courage repeated day after day. And with that realization, he walked forward into the night, ready for the next chapter of secrets waiting to be revealed. The young man's journey had already reshaped him. He no longer looked at life through the narrow window of scarcity, but through the wide horizon of possibility. Each secret had built upon the last, and now his foundation was strong. But as he moved further, he began to notice something new: the difference between those who earned money and those who built lasting wealth. Earning could be temporary, but wealth, true wealth, was something that endured. This understanding led him to the 10th secret: building assets, not just chasing income. For a long time, he had focused on making more money, whether through jobs, projects, or side ventures. But income, he realized, was like water pouring into a bucket full of holes. It came and went, flowing in but flowing out just as quickly. If he wanted to build something solid, he had to create assets, things that would continue to generate value even when he wasn't working. At first, this concept was confusing. What exactly was an asset? He learned that an asset is anything that puts money into your pocket, while a liability takes money out. A car bought only for status, draining money through loans and repairs, was a liability. But a rental property that paid him every month, or a business that continued earning even while he slept, was an asset. Books he wrote, skills he developed, investments that grew over time, all of these were assets too. So he began shifting his focus. Instead of buying things that only looked impressive, he directed his money into things that grew in value or created income. Each small step, each investment, felt like planting another tree in a forest that would one day provide shade, fruit, and shelter. He realized that rich people do not merely earn money. They plant it, grow it, and let it multiply. That was the difference between chasing wealth and building it. The more he studied assets, the more he saw how they demanded patience, which led him directly into the 11th secret: learning to delay gratification. In the world around him, people lived for instant pleasure. They spent money the moment it touched their hands. New phones, expensive clothes, endless entertainment. Each purchase gave them a spark of joy that vanished as quickly as it came. Yet their pockets remained empty, and their dreams stayed distant. The wealthy, however, played a different game. They were willing to wait. They understood that saying no to something small today could mean saying yes to something greater tomorrow. This discipline was not about deprivation, but about choice. The choice to prioritize future freedom over momentary satisfaction. The young man put this into practice. He resisted the urge to buy every new gadget, even when his friends teased him for being too serious. Instead, he directed that money into savings and investments. At first, it was not easy. There were moments when he felt left out, when the shine of quick pleasures tempted him. But over time, he noticed something powerful. While others were trapped in the cycle of buying and regretting, he was building a future that grew brighter with every decision. Delaying gratification gave him more than financial strength. It gave him emotional strength. It taught him patience, control, and the ability to see beyond the present moment. He learned that the ability to wait, to invest instead of consume, was one of the greatest powers a person could develop. And as he practiced patience, another truth revealed itself, one that touched not only his finances, but also his relationships and purpose. This was the 12th secret, giving value before expecting returns. In his earlier days, he had thought mostly about what he could get: more money, more opportunities, more results for himself. But as he grew, he noticed a strange pattern. The richest and most respected people he encountered were not those who demanded the most, but those who gave the most. They offered help, shared knowledge, created solutions, and gave value freely. In return, wealth flowed to them almost naturally, as if the universe rewarded their generosity. He realized that money is not chased, it is attracted, and it is attracted to value. If you want more, you must first give more. This could mean providing excellent service at work, offering real solutions in business, sharing ideas that help others grow, or simply caring enough to make a difference. So the young man shifted his approach. Instead of asking, "What can I get?" he began asking, "What can I give?" In his projects, he focused on creating real benefits for customers. In his interactions, he tried to leave people better than he found them. Slowly, the results surprised him. People trusted him more, recommended him, supported his work. Opportunities came his way not because he demanded them, but because he had sown seeds of value that naturally returned to him multiplied. It was a profound lesson. Wealth is not a selfish pursuit. True wealth comes when you align your success with the success of others. When you make other lives better, your own life inevitably grows richer. Walking home late one evening, the city felt different to him again. The glowing windows no longer represented untouchable towers of mystery. They were now reminders of choices, patience, and contribution. He understood that wealth was not built in a rush, not won in a single gamble, but crafted through assets that endure, patience that resists the world's temptations, and a heart that gives value first. Each secret so far had carried him forward, step by step, transforming him from a dreamer into a builder of lasting wealth. But he sensed that the journey still had more to reveal. There were truths he had not yet touched, lessons that would show him how to protect his wealth, how to give it meaning beyond himself, and how to keep growing long after he reached the milestones he once thought impossible. The night air was cool, the streets quiet, but inside him burned a steady fire. The path was long, but he was no longer afraid of distance. He knew that with each step, each habit, and each secret, he was not only moving closer to wealth, but becoming the kind of person who could sustain it, share it, and live fully within it. And as he walked, he whispered to himself with calm certainty, "The best is still ahead." The young man had come far. He had shifted his mindset, learned to respect every coin, invested in himself, valued time, built streams of income, chosen his circle, embraced discipline, taken risks, turned failure into strength, built assets, mastered patience, and discovered the secret of giving value first. With each lesson, he felt himself growing not only in wealth, but in wisdom. Still, There remained more to uncover, truths that would ensure that the riches he sought would not only arrive but endure. It was during this stage of his journey that he stumbled upon the 13th secret, protecting wealth through smart choices. By now, he was earning more than he ever had before. His projects were growing, his investments beginning to bear fruit, and for the first time, he felt the relief of financial security. Yet he soon realized that gaining wealth was only half the battle. Keeping it was just as important. Too many stories existed of people who rose quickly, only to lose everything through careless spending, poor planning, or reckless decisions. He thought back to the early days when he had respected even the smallest amounts of money. That respect, he understood, must never fade. Wealth has a way of making people careless, of tempting them into believing it will last forever. But without careful protection, money can vanish like sand slipping through open fingers. So he learned to defend what he built. He diversified his investments, making sure not all his resources were tied to one place. He resisted the urge to gamble or chase every shiny opportunity that came his way. He set aside savings for emergencies, knowing that unexpected storms would come. Most importantly, he reminded himself daily that wealth was not for showing off. It was for building freedom, security, and opportunity. Protecting wealth was not about fear, but about wisdom. It was about guarding the garden so the fruit could continue to grow. This awareness gave him stability, but soon he discovered that wealth without meaning felt incomplete. That realization revealed the 14th secret, creating a vision bigger than yourself. For years, his dream had been simple: to escape scarcity, to live comfortably, to no longer worry about bills or debts. And yet, as he reached that point, he realized something unexpected. Comfort alone did not satisfy him. A life lived only for himself felt small. He saw that the wealthiest people he admired did not stop once they had enough. They expanded their vision to include others. They built companies that created jobs, funded projects that changed communities, and left behind legacies that inspired generations. He asked himself, what will my wealth mean beyond my own life? What purpose will it serve? Slowly, he began to dream bigger. He imagined building schools, helping young people like himself who once stood outside the glowing towers with nothing but questions. He thought of his family, of lifting burdens from their shoulders. He thought of creating opportunities that would live on even after he was gone. For the first time, his dream was no longer only about money. It was about impact. This shift gave his journey new energy. He worked not only to build wealth, but to build meaning. Each dollar earned was not just currency. It was a tool, a brick in the foundation of something greater than himself. His life began to feel fuller, richer in ways that no bank account could measure. That was the true secret of vision. It gave wealth a soul. Yet even with purpose, he realized one final truth remained. The 15th secret was both the simplest and the hardest: never stop growing. Many people, he learned, stopped once they reached a certain level. They thought, I've made it, and they relaxed, letting time erode their skills, their habits, and their drive. But true wealth is not a destination. It is a journey without end. To stop growing is to start shrinking. So he committed himself to lifelong growth. He continued to learn, to adapt, to explore new opportunities. He studied changing markets, embraced new technologies, and refined his skills year after year. He understood that the world would never stand still, and neither could he. Growth was not only about money, but about becoming wiser, stronger, more capable, more generous. The wealthiest people were those who kept evolving long after they had enough, because they knew that growth itself was the greatest treasure. And so the young man, who was no longer so young, though still filled with energy, looked back on his journey. He remembered the nights of doubt, the failures that once felt like defeats, the temptations of easy pleasures, and the long hours of discipline. He remembered standing outside the towers of wealth, believing they were unreachable. And now, he stood not only inside them, but beyond them, building his own. He smiled, not with arrogance, but with gratitude, because he understood now. The secrets were never really secrets at all. They were truths hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone willing to listen, learn, and act. As he walked once more through the glowing city streets, he thought of others who still stood where he once had, staring at the lights, wondering if wealth was for them. He wished he could tell them what he now knew. That wealth begins not with money, but with mindset. That it grows from respect for the small, the discipline of patience, and the courage to take risks. That it is sustained by protecting what you build, giving value freely, and dreaming bigger than yourself. And that the journey never ends, because the true secret of getting rich is becoming rich in character, in vision, and in growth. He knew his story was only one among many, but he also knew it carried a message worth sharing. That ordinary people could achieve extraordinary things if they followed the path with faith and persistence. The towers of wealth were not fortresses, they were invitations. And the keys to enter them were already in the hands of those willing to learn. So he kept walking, not with desperation now, but with purpose. Each step echoed with the lessons of the past and the promise of the future. The night sky stretched above him, vast and endless, and in it he saw a reflection of the greatest truth of all, that wealth is not about what you hold, but about what you build, what you give, and who you become along the way. And with that thought, his journey reached not an end but a beginning of a life truly rich in every sense of the word.